So, what was that? That was one of these. And these are Okinawan Sai. This is my teacher, my sensei's collection, by the way. We trained with these the other day. It was a 100-degree day here in Texas in an air-conditioned-less dojo. So what are they? Well, a sai is more than a sword catcher. Sometimes they're just described as that. They're more than a billy club or a truncheon of some kind. And they're more than just a sharp, pointy piece of metal, a pig sticker. They're metal truncheons with which you can stab, club, catch and trap being two different things, and throw. And when I say throw, I don't mean in just the same way that you could throw anything like a billy club. I mean throw with deadly accuracy and results. They also come in a wide variety, so they always have that classic shape to a certain extent, but you can see there's variation just here within this collection, no less. And sometimes slight differences will make a big difference in the use of the weapon, which you might not realize. Now, the sai is one of the classic Okinawan, so therefore karate/kobudo weapons, but it didn't originate there. Things like it were used throughout mainland Asia, maybe started in India, in fact, but definitely found its final home and final form in Okinawa. And there are similar weapons from even further out, so here's a European parrying dagger, and very similar concept, but big difference, right? This is a truly bladed weapon. Some sai were that as well, but I would say a very small percentage of them. Now let me try to give just a quick sampling here of how you might use it. So obviously I can swing it in any direction to try to catch an incoming strike, but I've got those prongs, right? I can stab, I can block, trap with the hook there, punch with this end, that's a common technique. And you can see how that hook, it gives you the ability to just kind of keep manipulating the weapon. I can twirl around to change handholds. So let's look at one example, one pair from this vast collection that my teacher Concho Chapman has. So this represents a pretty old form. These are, well, they're antiques in and of themselves, this pair, but they're a modern pair. And they're supposed to be modeled after a very old original Okinawan pair. And this kind of crescent shape, on the guard, to me that's what I think of as the older type sai. The yoku are the prongs, and here you can see they're basically parallel to the central shaft. The shaft is usually, but not always, kind of faceted, so it could be hexagonal, whatever, and that's going to add a little bit more dig and cut to a kind of a clubbing strike. It almost always tapers down, as it does here. Notice it doesn't taper down to a complete point. They always taper down somewhat, but not entirely, if that makes any sense. So it's not just a giant spike that's as sharp as can be. There's almost always a wrap of some kind on the handle. If it was fancy, then it'd be rayskin. But with sai, it was usually pretty humble. The handle is the suka. Now, if you're only familiar with kind of modern sai, then you'd expect right here at the nexus of the entire weapon, which is called the moto, where all these lines come together, to see a bulge, right? The metal bulges out, so not always that way, as you can see here. Another way to think of the weapon is it's almost like a small pitchfork, right? With the center prong just extended out. Here's the yoku, or one of them, and this is a really important part of the weapon. This is what allows you to trap an incoming weapon, allows you to hook the flesh of an opponent. It allows you to pierce if you miss, purposefully or otherwise, with the central shaft. And it protects your hand, especially when it's actually pointing down back towards the pommel, which some sai do. You can also see the facets, the flat surfaces on the shaft there. The manuchi, or I have no idea how to pronounce that. Speaking of the shaft, we'll work our way up it towards the tip, and that's obviously your main thrusting point, but like we said, you can use either of the two prongs. And see how it's, again, not as sharp as could be. It's coming down, and then it breaks to that final point, and even then it's a little bit blunted. This, to me, is the classic sai tip. Is it ground down to be as sharp as absolutely possible? No, clearly not. Can it puncture flesh? Yes it can. Now, this may surprise you. This is where this weapon's kind of underappreciated. If you think about it, we've got 3 piercing surfaces, or points, and no less than 4 blunt impact striking surfaces. Shaft, sides of the 2 prongs, and pommel, all of which you use in training. Let me go ahead and get this guy in hand so you can get a better idea of the size. Another interesting thing about these is, notice that the center of gravity is close to the hand, right? So that's going to be really common on bladed weapons, but when you strike with a shaft, which in the kata I've been trained with, more than one kata, you do that a lot. It's pretty rare for an impact weapon to have that kind of a feel to it, so it's interesting when you're swinging it. Now here's another grip. Those of you familiar with like a historical European martial arts will know this grip, and curling your index finger on there gives you much more leverage. So that's handy. What's not so handy is, of course, an incoming weapon can then catch you on that same finger. I'm going to try to show two things at once here. The standard punch. Now, I haven't rotated my hand all the way over, so it's palm down, but this is how you would grip it for the punch, and also the fact that it can be hidden under a sleeve, and that was a common hiding place. I should be careful using the word common. It was a hiding place that was used. I feel like now I've covered the basics, and I'm going to make more than one video about these because I think they're really that sophisticated and somewhat misunderstood. So here I am, and notice I'm spinning around. Just want to at least get in one actual technique and bringing it for an overhand strike. So this is the kind of clubbing strike that you do a lot in some of the katas. And notice that I've got one side, the one in my left hand, out in kind of an offensive position, right? Point out. And the other one on my right hand is in the reverse, more of a blocking trapping. So that's yet another level of nuance that comes with these. You can have both out, both in reverse, one out in your right hand but not your left, and vice versa. That's 4 different configurations. Well, I like to keep these videos fairly short, and that really kind of just scratches the surface, so I want to show more examples from that collection, including some surprises. So, see you next time. Thanks.